Hi everybody, it's Ellen and Andy again from Tea Dot & Co. Today we're going to talk about paella.
Paella.
If you're Yorkshire, it's paella. But we're in Spain, so we're trying to be proper. A little bit of a backstory first. My grandma was made redundant from a job in England in around about 1978 and decided to take an holiday in Spain. And while she was there, she bought a house without telling my grandpa. And it was in a little Spanish village up a mountain, and there were very, very few foreigners about at that time. So the Spanish people loved us. We were a novelty, and they took us under their wing. And the guy that lived across the road was a fruit and veg salesman from a market. And he treated us like his family. We went to his daughter's communion and everything. And every Sunday they used to invite us across for their paella, which they used to cook outdoors on an orange wood fire. And they taught us how to cook paella, and we've been cooking it their way ever since, although our ingredients are a little bit different to the ones that they use, because he used to come back with a sack with a rabbit jumping about inside it, and he used to go out on a fishing boat to catch the shellfish. We don't do that, and our ingredients are a little bit different. Some Spanish people won't approve of the ingredients that we put in ours, but really you can put whatever you want to put into a paella and make it your own version. But this is how we make it. First of all, you can cook a paella in your kitchen on the hob in a frying pan. If you're cooking for a lot of people, you'd need a fairly big frying pan to do it, and remember your rice is going to swell quite a lot. Traditionally, it's cooked outdoors on an orange wood fire, and I've never tasted a paella as good as ones that are cooked on orange wood fires outdoors, but we can't do that neither.
I'm still waiting to try one that's been as good as one that you do, and this is not me blowing her trumpet. There's a restaurant just up the road, heading south from Torrevieja, that specialises in wood fires, paella.
Mine is quite good, and everybody that eats it says it's quite good as well.
Even people that don't like it said it's quite good.
Yeah.
Phil and Jill need to try some.
Yeah, they do. Jill, if you're watching this, when lockdown's over, you and Phil are invited round for one of my paellas. Okay?
No shellfish.
I'll not put shellfish in it, just in case Phil's allergic. When the weather's a bit blowy outside or it's a bit cool, we do cook it in the kitchen on the hob, but we like to cook it outdoors. We do use a paella pan. This is what one looks like. This is only a small one. You can get them that actually feed a couple of hundred people.
Yeah, they go on the back of a lorry.
Yeah.
Literally.
This one officially is meant to feed, I think, how many people do they say that feeds? 12? We do one like that for 4 because we're really fat pigs.
Chumps, yeah.
But we like our food, and we normally do that size for 4 people.
Actually, no, I would say it's the next size down for 4 that we use. Anyway.
We use that for 4 and we've got leftovers. So
yes. There
we go.
Which, actually, she doesn't like reheated rice. For me, I'll put it into a bag and freeze it, not a problem. There's a knack to reheating it, which I found which is the best, which is her youngest daughter uses. Basically, when it's defrosted, put it in the microwave, a little bit of water, cling film, bosh, off you go.
Nothing tastes as good as when it's fresh, though.
No.
We also use, when we're outside, a gas burner. Now, the good thing about this one is if you've only got a small pan, you can just light the centering. And if you've got a bigger pan, you can light both, and it keeps sort of a constant heat all the way across the bottom of the pan. And it just attaches to a gas bottle. And I suppose it's like a camping stove, really.
Yeah.
Maybe a camping burner would do if you wanted to do.
Just as a heads
outside.
up, the pan and they're no good for doing a full English breakfast in the morning.
Why aren't they?
Because if you remember last time, it all stuck and scorched the pan.
Oh, right,
Doesn't quite
okay.
cook it right.
Maybe that's just because you can't cook properly.
I thought you did it.
I can't remember doing that. Anyway, that's detracting. So that's the equipment that we use. We have also got like a tripod stand that you can put this burner onto, so that and you can also adjust the level of the legs and everything like that, so that it's all
level.
even level, and your water and your oil are not pooling in one area more than another. So the ingredients that I use when I'm making my version is I always cook with olive oil. I don't cook with anything else. For me, olive oil's got the best flavour and does the best job. And when you put it into your pan, you need it to be, what do you think, about a centimetre deep all over, or just a half a centimetre deep all the way? It needs quite a lot of oil, and that soaks into your rice as well. If you don't have enough oil in, it's not going to be right. I use short grain rice, which is risotto rice. The one that I use is a Spanish rice called La Bomba, which makes really good paella. But you could, if you're in the UK, you could use Italian risotto rice. I've not used rice pudding rice, but I'm sure that would be okay as well because it is.
I think in England
it is a
it's
short grain.
arborio rice or something
Is
like
it?
that it's called. I
Yeah,
think.
you know, any sort of you can't use long grain rice to make a proper paella.
No,
It's not.
save
gonna
that
work
for
properly.
Indian.
Yeah, if you want to make a bit of pilau rice, then different. Yeah, use that. But for a paella, you need to have short grain rice. You'll need saffron, and I put quite a bit of saffron into mine. I also buy from the local supermarket here. You probably can't get that in the UK or other countries, but here in Spain you can get it. It's a paella colorant, which turns you. I mean, the saffron will turn your rice yellow, but the colorant turns it a deeper yellow. It looks better. But also the one that I buy's got saffron in it as well, so it also adds to your flavour. You need to put quite a bit of salt in it while it's cooking, because if you don't put enough salt it's not going to taste right. And so what I would do is put some salt in, have a little taste to make sure it's not too salty. If it's not salty enough, add a little bit more. And I use chicken stock in mine. I buy cartons of chicken stock from our local supermarket, which is Mercadona. And generally speaking, the size of the pan that I've just shown you, I'll use 2 litres of stock in that to do a decent paella. You could make your own stock using stock cubes, not as good. You could boil up a chicken carcass with a bit of onion or whatever.
Or turkey.
If you're making a vegetarian one, obviously you'll not want to use chicken stock, but you can get some really good vegetable stocks out there to use in it instead. My recommendation is always use stock rather than just plain water, because it all adds to the flavour. Now the ingredients that I use to make my variation, as I said, you can, each different autonomous area here in Spain has got its own variation of paella. The one that I do is my variation. It's not a Valencian variation. It's not an Alicante. It's not a Murcian. It's a Helen variation. So my variation, I like to do a mixed one. So I like to do shellfish and meat. I'm not bothered about having normal fish in it, but the shellfish that I tend to put in it are prawns, shell-on prawns. Mussels, I always buy fresh live mussels to put into it, and clams. The clams that I buy, quite often when you buy clams off of a fresh fish store, they tend to be a little bit sandy, so I do, unfortunately, I'm ashamed to say, but they taste good, buy frozen clams. And the ones that I buy are from the Pacific Ocean, and they've got no sand in them at all. The meat that I put into it is, I use chicken thighs.
Boneless?
Boneless, skinless chicken thighs, and I cut them into sort of, a couple of centimetre square chunks. I prefer chicken thighs to chicken breast because it's not as dry and I think it's tastier. Little ribs, so pork ribs cut into that sort of size. I use those, and little choritos. They're sort of tapas sized choritos. I don't chorizo sausages. This is where Spanish people will disagree with me.
This is the uncooked ones, isn't it?
Yeah, uncooked ones. They think it's an abomination to put chorizo in a paella, but I think it adds to the flavour. I don't like the big ones that you have to chop up into pieces. The little ones are sort of round like that. You can buy them in all the supermarkets, especially for tapas, and I put those into it. And then the vegetables that I put into it, I put flat green beans in it, I put red peppers into it, lots and lots of garlic. And the garlic that I put into it, I leave it with the shells, with the skins on. I cook it with the skins on. I separate them into cloves. I don't put a whole bulb in. Separate it into cloves and cook it with the shell on, because it stays really nice and sweet if you cook it like that. And it's got a great flavour. And to be quite honest, we all fight for the cloves of garlic when it's cooked. I also put into it white beans, so perhaps butter beans, or what do they call them? Those other like
haricot?
No, I think they're green beans. But anyway, the little white beans that you can get in a jar in salted water, I put those into it. Anything else?
Onion, tomato.
Onion and tomato. I always put those into mine as well. So what I usually start off doing is deveining the prawns, because I cannot stand when you get prawns in a restaurant and it's still got that dirty, horrible vein down the back of it, which is actually its intestines, and to me I think it's disgusting to think about eating that. So what I do, the shell-on prawns, I always buy big ones, and to get the vein out while they're still raw, because it's a lot easier to get it out when they're raw than when they're cooked, I snip up the back of the prawn with a pair of scissors, and then you can see the vein running along the back, and you can just get it and pull it out, and that's a clean prawn then. So prep my prawns like that first.
It's usually me that does that job.
Yeah, because I don't like doing it. And also the mussels, to check if the mussels are good, I buy a bag of mussels, and you wish. So buy a bag of mussels, and any that they should all be closed firmly shut. So we get them out of the bag. Any that are a little bit open, if you give them a little bit of a tap with your knuckle on the shell, because you've got to cook them when they're alive. I'm sorry, you animal rights activists out there, I know it sounds cruel, but if you cook them when they're dead, you're going to get some food poisoning. So you cook a mussel from live, and any that don't close when you've tapped the shell, throw them away. I give them a good scrub. If there are any barnacles or anything like that stuck on the outside, I chip them off and pull away the beard, which is the green bit of seaweed that it's been attached to wherever it's been attached to with. You need to gently pull it out, and that's your mussel prepped. And I cook these first. So we get the olive oil in the pan. When it's nice and hot, I put the mussels in. And as they cook, they open. Again, any that don't open, throw them away. It's not worth risking food poisoning for. So all of them that open, as they open, take them out of the pan and set them to one side. And then I cook the prawns, which are generally a grey colour when you buy them raw and uncooked. As you cook them with the shell on, they'll turn pink, and when they turn pink, take them out of the pan and set them to one side. The tomatoes and the onions, they need to be blitzed together in a food processor, or grated even. If you've not got a food processor, grate them together. I
can't believe you were still grating them. I was like, why don't you use a food processor?
Yeah, well, I never thought of that. I'm a bit blonde sometimes. So make sure that you've sort of got, it's like a paste of your tomato and onion together. Again, set to one side. All the rest of the ingredients, you need to cut them up into nice little chunks. And remember, you're not cutting the garlic up at all, you're just separating it into cloves, leaving it in its skin, and then put all them into the pan. With your ingredients, I'm talking about your fresh ingredients, not your rice. So the ribs are better if you roast them off a little bit in the oven first, so that they're nice and well cooked and soft and falling off the bone when you do put them in. But your chicken, and all of your veggies apart from the jar of beans, so all of your fresh veggies are in your pan, and you just fry them off gently until they start to cook a little bit. After you've fried them a little bit and your chicken's looking more or less cooked, and your chorizo are looking like they've got a little bit of brown on them, then you can add your stock. So pour in 1 carton of stock and bubble away. And I keep, the way that I know it's ready to add the rice is when the garlic started to go soft, because that takes, the thing that's going to take the longest to cook is the garlic. So when the garlic started to go soft, that's when I put the rice in, and I don't measure anything out. So it's going to be, when you guys try and make a paella, if you follow my recipe.
Usually, at least, when I've done it in England for my lot, it's usually been at least 1 handful of rice per person.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of trial and error. I usually sprinkle it in and have a look and make sure I've got a nice little coating on the bottom of the pan. Remember, again, it's going to swell, so it is going to fill your pan up. You've got your rice in. Now's the time to add your saffron. Again, I don't measure it, I just put a good sprinkle in. It comes in little strips. It's out of the middle of the crocus plant. So you put your little strips of saffron in. You want to put your paella colourant in, and your rice.
And the ribs?
Well, you can put, if your ribs are done enough, you can tip your ribs into the water then. And also your blitzed tomato and onion. You'll not even know that there's tomato and onion in there. So if you've got somebody that doesn't like onion, just don't tell them you put it in. They'll never know. It all just adds to the flavour. And then you're going to simmer it and simmer it and simmer it. I might use a couple of tomatoes in that size pan. They need to be really, really ripe, soft tomatoes, to be quite honest with you. They blitz up better if they're a bit overripe. So if you've got one that you wouldn't use in a salad because it's starting to turn a little bit, that'd be great to put in your paella. So then I turn the ring down really, really, really low, so that you've only just got a tiny bit of flame, because I don't want it to burn on the bottom. And I cover mine with tin foil, and I resist temptation to look at it or stir it for a good 15-20 minutes, because what you're aiming to do, you don't want to burn the bottom of it. If it's black and burnt, that's no good. But what you're trying to do is caramelise the bottom of it. And this caramelised bit on the bottom of your paella pan is an absolute speciality, and they fight over it here in Spain. It's actually got a name, and it's called sucarat. That's what they call it. It's the sucarat at the bottom of the pan, and it's a delicacy. So that's what you're aiming for. You want your rice to be, some places serve it a little bit al dente. I don't like it like that. I like it nice and soft, but not sloppy and mushy. But I like the little bit of caramelised rice on the bottom of the pan as well, and you just have to scrape it off and serve it with your your rest of your rice. Now you want your rice and everything to be nearly done before you add your beans, so you strain the white beans in the jar. So what you'll need to do is strain the salt water off of that and give it a good rinse, and then add them in and gently stir them in so you're not disturbing the bottom, your clams. Now you need to be cooking them in the bag, in the microwave, so that they're all open. And now's when we add all of the shellfish back into the paella. So it's for a decoration. So you're laying your prawns on to look nice. You're sticking your mussels back in. Remember, any ones that have not opened, you need to be throwing those away and putting your clams in. And then cover it up again, really low heat, until your rice is nice and soft. And I always turn the heat off and leave it to stand for a good 5 minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes before we serve it. And then it's ready to eat. Best served with a slice of lemon. It tastes better when you squeeze a little bit of lemon on top of it. And that's it.
Crusty bread and some butter.
Yeah, a bit of crusty bread and butter as well, although Spanish again would disagree with the butter part of it, but it is nice with a bit of bread and butter and a nice glass of red wine. And that's it.
Hope that helps.
Yeah.
Even I can make it. I mean, I made them in England for my folks. I think it was Boxing Day or something like that. I did one.
It's a little bit more difficult in the UK to get your nice fresh ingredients. So what you might need to do is look in your supermarket. In your freezer section, they'll have a seafood mix, and it might be that you're buying prawns that have not got the shell on, and mussels that are already cooked and things like that. You just have to improvise and put in it what you can do. You might not want to put prawns in it at all, and no mussels in it. The fresh fish counters in England, the prawns I know are really expensive, and you might be paying £1 a prawn, whereas here in Spain we get a kilo for sort of €6 or €7, which makes it a lot more cost-effective meal to cook. I've made some really nice vegetarian paellas in the past as well, and I've put in those asparagus and artichoke and broad beans and all different sorts of things.
2 different peppers.
Yeah,
You've got green pepper as well, I think.
Yeah, like I said, you can improvise and adjust it to your taste. But it's a decent meal. It used to be a porker's meal because they'd just chuck in it whatever they'd got in the house. Now it's quite trendy, and you're going to be paying quite a lot of money to buy one in a restaurant. So why not make one at home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beats going to Jaleo in Disney Springs.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, that's it, guys. Thanks a lot for listening.
Be safe.
Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto. Bye.
Bye.